Hello. Hope everybody can hear us. If you can, type something into the chat box. Just make sure everybody's there. I'm Molly Bryant. I'll tell you more about who I am in a moment. And I'm here with PPC Ed, the one and only Ed Ruffin. We are super excited. Cool. I see at least one person can hear us. We're really excited to talk to you today. We've got a great packed session. Our focus, of course, today is on crushing the competition, something I know that you all want to do. I want you to do it. We all at Seller Labs want you to do it this holiday season. So hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Let's get started. Ed, next. So again, my name is Molly Maple Bryant. I am the Vice President of Marketing here at Seller Labs. I've been here since January and thrilled to be talking to you today. And Ed, I think everyone knows you, but do you mind introducing yourself just a bit?
Yes, of course. My name is Ed Ruffin. I'm the Director for the Services team here at Seller Labs and been here for over 3 years now. So I'm a huge nerd at this point about data and cannot wait to talk to you all about what you can do really in Q4 and really anytime to get the most out of your holiday season, especially.
Be a little louder into the mic, but I think, again, everybody knows Ed, and you'll get to be hearing more about his expertise. I'm so excited to be hosting with him today. So let's jump into the things we've prepared. Where I really want to set the stage with this presentation is, it's October 24th, my sister's birthday. Sally Maple, if you're out there, happy birthday. But we're not into November yet, and we're already starting to see some trends that tell us holiday season is right around the corner. In November, you can expect what a lot of sellers see, average sales on Amazon, really probably industry-wide, 4 times higher. And then in December, not a shocker, they're up to 5 times higher. Pretty big numbers, as you can expect. But, next slide, Ed. Amazon sellers generally, which means your competition, are doing, and most importantly, they are spending more. How much more? You may want to know. I crunch a lot of numbers here at Seller Labs. I look at data all the time, very focused on data. And I did some number crunching around Prime Day, the other big Amazon-specific tentpole shopper event. And I saw in the 48-hour period for Amazon, ad spend was more than double on average. And that was just a 48-hour period. So compared to a comparable length of time, Amazon sellers were spending more than double their normal budget. The interesting thing was I saw that data, or I saw that trend, regardless of whether the seller was typically spending under $10 a day or spending in the thousands of dollars a day on advertising. So that trend was across the board as far as sizes of sellers. I also saw triple-digit growth in Amazon ad spend. So you can expect your competitors will be doing the same. So this holiday season, knowing that, you may not have the budget that allows you to spend. So you've got to do everything right. And we are going to talk about advertising, but that is not the only piece of the puzzle. What we've done is sit down, Ed and I have sat down and thought through some of the most creative and most powerful tips that we can give you to start with right now. So Ed, why don't you go through these 5 and then we'll.
Yeah, first of all, I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Can everybody hear me now? Is this better?
A little better.
A little better? Okay, I'll just talk really loud here. Okay, so our 5 tips to crush the competition, they seem pretty easy right at the surface level, but those are going to be optimizing for conversions. Doing what you can to get sales and driving conversions home. And being more prepared, especially, is huge. You make sure you're ready for Q4. You can't just do the normal, steps that you go through every quarter. Q4 is different. Also want to look at nailing your organic rank. It's not all about PPC. It's going to be about your organics as well. And also changing your strategy.
Right, Ed, I'm going to have to jump in here and ask you to disconnect the mic. You're sounding like you're making our 5 tips into a wrap, which I love. But just so that everyone can hear us, let's go back through those while Ed takes that microphone off and gets it sorted out. We're going to go through 5 tips, and Ed will be back with us in just a second. Optimizing for conversions, being more prepared with data, nailing organic rank, as he was just pointing out, changing your strategies for the season, which I'm really excited about that. We've seen some pretty incredible numbers and results coming out of specific creative seasonal strategies for advertising and selling, and also knowing what that's your competitors are doing, keeping an eye on your competitors. And we've got a special tactic that we want you to use, let's not say against them, but as you're competing with them. So let's jump into the first tip here. Hopefully Ed is still there. He was driving the slides. There we go. So tip number 1, we want to crush them with conversions. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. So when I say crush them with conversions, we all know that traffic is going to pick up a lot in the holiday season. Ed, next slide, if you don't mind. While the traffic is there, we need to be primed to convert those new buyers who are on your product listing. So I say here, know what buyers want, do that. Sounds super simple. I'm sure that it does, but we all know it's not. How do we know what buyers want? How do we know what your buyers want? Well, what I recommend here is something that I know most sellers are not doing. I know this because we went to a number of sellers earlier this year trying to help them do just this. We had an opportunity to test some listings and test parts of listings. And no one really understood what this was. They were struggling with the value of it. And the value is huge in understanding what about your listing turns people off and what makes them want to buy. What I'm talking about is comparing versions of your listing, comparing them against other competitive listings, or just 2 versions of your own photo, your listing headline, your listing description, or the formatting. All of these things are on the table to test. The more you test, the more you are going to be prepared to convert the people who land on your listing. So let's take a quick peek at what I'm talking about. A few weeks back, we had the opportunity to work with one seller and test a photo that they were using, or the primary photo for their product listing. So this was 2 versions of the same product. You can see just 2 very different stylings of it. Putting this out into a testing tool, we actually have a partner, PickFu, that we've talked about before, to gain Amazon shoppers' opinions on the 2 images. What makes you want to buy? And next slide, we can see one of the great points about testing is not just seeing what people like, but what the feedback is based on what you show them. I know a lot about the listings here and the responses. Ed, I don't know if you had any quick takes. I have my own.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some great responses coming through this, and I first of all want to point out how honest these responses are. I think that's my favorite part of this. I actually kind of laughed at some of these when they first came in, like how it said, option B has pants that are unnatural. Never thought I'd see that, but that's wonderful. This is what you want to see. You want to be open about this. You want to get honest, honesty and as many responses as possible, because then you can dive into them and really understand what people think about your images or anything that you're testing in an A/B stance. So I thought these were wonderful, and I like how it says, I like showing both socks. I like it looks better when it's symmetrical. So there's lots of feedback on both takes, so you can kind of weigh those options and see what's best for your listing.
That's exactly right. And looking at this as a marketer in particular, I love the clarity in these comments. And I noticed a couple of trends right off the bat that I think that you could get from testing your listing with real Amazon shoppers. So let's go to the next slide. I have a couple of takeaways and the things you should be looking for. Because remember, we're talking about optimizing for conversions. What you want is your image to be thumb stopping, as our friend Peter Kearns likes to say. We want our listing to be thorough, but not too much so that people get lost. In looking at this comparison, the things that jumped out at me were, first, they want to see an image that's clear and close. So make sure whatever the image is you're using, you make it clear, make it high res. The second thing that I think Ed sort of alluded to was that they didn't like the styling of the pants. While that's funny, it's funny to laugh about that, and the comments were funny. Here's the reality. Something about that photo is distracting people enough, they don't like it. So not going to say style it without pants, but perhaps rethink the way you're styling the image. This is really great feedback because it's not something you'd think about. You're selling the sock product, not the pants. but it's clearly distracting people. They're turned off. Easy thing to fix. Third, shoppers want to see the entire product. Although the image that was preferred was just one sock, I saw at least a few comments referring to they want to see the full product they're buying. They want to see both feet. So clearer image of both feet and maybe rethink the pants, and you may have a winner. So be poised to convert is the key. Testing things is critical to being poised to convert. Now, I saw a quick question come through, which is, how long do I recommend testing anything? I think it's really going to depend on how close to the holiday shopping season we get, because that's our focus here. I would suggest no more than a week, depending on your buying cycle. Here in my world, I usually test things. We test a lot of things. Approximately 2 weeks, we test a change. But that may not work for you as we get closer to the holiday season. You want to go ahead and test it, get it ready for the holiday.
And then tip 2, this is where I get to step in. Everybody can hear me now, so I hope that's a lot better. I do apologize about that before, but it should be crystal clear now, because I want you to hear about beating them by being prepared. I am a very prepared guy, I'd like to say, because I like to overthink a lot of things, make sure I'm 100% prepared before I step into something. This is an example where I thought I was prepared, and now we're using different headphones and different mics. But tip 2, you got to beat them by being prepared. You can't just step into Q4 and just hope that everything works out perfectly. You have to plan ahead, and you have to be really wise about your options and understand what you have to do to get a step up on the competitors and on the game in general. What I really mean by that is prepare your advertising campaigns, guys. This is something I tell everybody all the time. You always have to be ready for Q4 with your advertising, especially because it's kind of the Wild West sometimes, because there's a lot more people that are advertising for Q4, a lot more people selling during Q4, and you have to be ready to step in and kind of take over as soon as possible. So the first portion of this is really always having a workable budget. You may need to spend more during the holidays, and I'll be the first one to say that, guys. I've seen this for the past 3 years. This definitely happens. More shoppers means more spend. It means more people are on Amazon, they're clicking on ads, they're engaging, and of course, a lot of them are buying as well, but you may have to spend more up front to make sure that you're staying in the game and keeping your ads running as much as possible. You may have to open up your budgets, and you may have to make your cost per click a little higher so you can keep up with that traffic. And next, because you're spending more, go ahead and remove wasted ad spend ahead of time. Go ahead and drill into your campaigns and your advertising and cut out what's not working. There's no need to continue to waste spend on terms and keywords that are not converting now. If they're not converting now, they probably won't work during Q4. So focus on what's working now and really just double down on that and make sure you're getting the most out of it that you can. And then something I have to bring up is don't start using a new advertising tool on Black Friday. This sounds kind of scary. Just think about you're on Black Friday and you're like, you know what? I want to try something out that I've never done before. That's not the time to do that. This is going to cause confusion because you have to learn how the tool works, have to understand what's going on there. There can be a higher amount of wasted ad spend because most tools do take some time to gain data and provide suggestions for your advertising. And it can lead to ads being out of control because they're going to be running kind of rampant before that tool steps up and really starts learning about your advertising. And I will say this though, guys, you can use Ignite to beat the competition. This is why I'm saying you can do this now. This is why we're having the webinar now. We're getting people prepared. Because if you use Ignite, you first of all will gain the previous 60 days of data for advertising. Like as soon as you connect to Ignite, it pulls in the past 60 days of data. But the best part is it saves that data going forward. So the next day you have 61 days of data, then 62 days of data, 63, and so forth and so on. So honestly, if you sign up for Ignite now, or if you're already using Ignite, that's wonderful. You already have some history and some historic data that's already sitting there waiting for you to use. But if you have it now, or you sign up for it now, next year, if you're still using it, you'll have year-over-year advertising metrics. Mind blown. That's something that Amazon doesn't really provide. So you can actually understand, okay, this is how much I was spending last year. Here's how I'm spending this year. What's the trend year over year? What should I expect and what should I do differently going forward into Q4? So using Ignite to beat out the competition. People may just be using the basic fundamentals that they find in Seller Central. And honestly, that's just not enough. We use this tool every day because we have that historic data that lets us see what's working, what has been working, and what might work in the future as well. And remember, guys, just like I just said, if you're advertising on Amazon, you already have so much data available. Amazon's just giving you information that you can use to make your campaigns better and also make your listing better. So much is already right there at your fingertips. And what I mean is really, you can use this advertising data. It's not just numbers and words and dollar signs and things like that. I mean, it kind of is. But now is the time that you can get your baseline data before traffic really picks up. Right now, you can dig into your campaigns and see what has been working, see what's been converting, see what your average cost per click is, how much you're spending on a daily basis. So then as traffic picks up, you can gauge what type of growth you're having or how much more you're having to spend as well. You have to understand now what you're doing so you can see that growth over time. And remember, I've talked about this a lot, but auto-targeting campaigns are a great way for you to really check your listing. Amazon analyzes your listing for auto-targeting campaigns and drives traffic to them based off of the search terms inside of that listing. So you can ask yourself, am I showing up for keywords that I've included in my listing? Like, am I actually indexing for what I want to index for? Check your search term report inside your auto-targeting campaign. Are you seeing those search terms in there? If so, then that's awesome. You're indexing for those. You're getting some traffic. But then also, on the flip side, are there terms in your search term report that have nothing to do with your listing? Are you seeing like erroneous terms come in that have nothing to do? You're selling an apple slicer and then all of a sudden garlic press shows up. If that's the case now, drill into your listing and clean it up and find out what may cause that random traffic to come through. Don't wait till it's too late and you have way too many search terms and keywords all over the place that it's harder to dig through. So yes, use your advertising data and use it now, guys. Don't wait for a long time.
I think, in the holiday season. But really, if you're ignoring your overall organic rank in favor of advertising, you're missing probably the biggest piece of success. So what we want you to do this holiday season is crush them organically. We know that rank matters, and therefore reviews matter. So how do we add more reviews leading up to the holiday season? There's not really clarity on the Amazon algorithm. We all think we know that there are certain pieces that are put into your organic rank for any given product race-in. We do know that reviews are a large part of that, and positive reviews are, of course, what we need. So we can't get reviews if we don't have a great product. We can't get reviews if we don't ask. But asking requires a lot of work sometimes, and email overload is real. I know, I deal with it here at Seller Labs. We send a lot of bulk email. So there are some things that you can do to improve your ability to get reviews. Of course, one of those is automating your reviews. Of course, we recommend Feedback Genius, but I know a lot of you are probably sending a review requests, solicitation requests through Seller Central or something else. So there are still best practices you can use no matter what your tool is. But the very first thing you need to do is look at that subject line. You can usually expect, for the amount of email you send, industry-wide, email open rates are around 15%. Maybe a little above, maybe a little below. The larger your population is, the lower your open rate is going to be overall. That's just the way that it works. And from that group, you can expect somewhere, and it can trend even below 2%, but Amazon average between 2 and 5% review rate based on the number of review requests that you send. That's why it's important to automate it. You really need numbers. You need to be asking every purchaser to leave a review. And then once you're doing that, you need to make sure that every time you send an email, it's ready. It's awesome. Just like testing your product listings for conversion, you need to test your subject line for opens. So let's talk a little more about what that really means. Testing an email subject line is something I feel very strongly about. We do it here. What it is taking two, you can do more, but I recommend never testing more than two versions of something at a time because you really want a good control. but 2 subject lines to test. Start with some best practices. And yes, I've got some in this deck that are more of an email marketer's best practices, as well as Feedback Genius specific best hits. So we'll get there in a second. But send them to segments of your customers. And then the one that garners more opens or more reviews should be your default. Now, why do I say opens or reviews? Well, because I want you to never stop testing. As a marketer, data is my best friend. So we test for opens, and then we might test later, once we've got the subject line tested, we might test the actual copy for getting more reviews. You may be doing 2-part test reviews. It's critical. And I noticed that a lot of our customers who are using Feedback Genius or Seller Labs Pro today aren't using the testing feature, but they're getting a lot of reviews. So make sure you're automating and make sure you're asking. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the best practices and some of the things that we should be doing. So first off, you need to get your test set up. Last slide, sorry, Ed, you jumped ahead. Yep, Feedback Genius makes this easy. I'm not sure if you can do this in Seller Central as easily, but what you want to do is get this set up in Feedback Genius and make sure that you go through the wizard to send to the right segment of your customers. Then you need to optimize those subject lines. Let's move to the next slide. So a few best practices from Feedback Genius, Amazon specific success rates. So our top tips here. Reference the Amazon order. Use variables that refer to the product or the product name, the Amazon order. Tapping into that expectation of the customer, the buyer. Be proactive. You don't have to send just once something has been delivered. Test different events, but be proactive and be urgent in the subject line. Sending something with various types of order events can help you figure out if your buyer is better targeted in the beginning before they've received the product or after they've had time to use it. Some other best practices that we see, be a little bit vague or imply value. And that's a few different ways. There are a few different ways we can do that. I've also got my own personal best practices on the next slide. But you can take a peek at those customer best hits, if you will. These are from Feedback Genius customers, the ones that get them the most opens and the most reviews. You saw on the last slide, I had a couple of quick stats. You don't have to go back there, Ed, but average Feedback Genius user, because they're automating that ask, they're getting over 250 reviews, average seller rating of 4.4. So it proves you will get reviews if you just ask. Now, if you want bonus points, I recommend that you take a peek at my own personal best practices. These are based on my years of experience and what we do here at Seller Labs. I can tell you that emails with a subject line that use you or your are definitely more frequently opened. Emojis, and Feedback Genius now supports emojis. I thought this was totally a non-starter when I first read the stat, but people open emails with emojis. So add those eyeballs, add that heart eye smiley face, cat face, whatever works for your brand, but use them because it does increase opens up to 9%. Question marks, asking a question in the subject line, and being creative. So a little fun stat for you. When we here at Seller Labs nail the subject line, and when I say nail it, when we get one that I know is gonna be a hot ticket item, we can see versus a normal email send between 6 and 10% higher open rates. I'm not guaranteeing that sort of result for you. Your mileage may vary, but it proves that when you get a subject line that works, it can increase your likelihood of reviews much by a much greater percentage than you might expect. With an open rate industry average of 15%, 10% puts you to almost 1 in 4, or at 1 in 4. So do it. Get out there and test. All right.
And then, yeah, I mean, so next, we've been talking about this being a season. It is Q4. It does come around, seasonality, this, that, and the other. But really, we want to set you up to beat them, this season and every season. It is something where you have to change some of your tactics because it is Q4, because there's more traffic, there's more going on. But some of these things that you can learn from this, you'll be applying across the board. And one of the things I want to start off with is really doing holiday-specific campaigns, across the board, any type of holiday. One thing that we like to do is we create holiday-specific sponsored brand campaigns. So this allows you to stand out from the crowd, allows you to bring in holiday shoppers who are looking for a specific holiday item or something for someone at this certain time of the year. And it really sets you apart and helps you stand out from the competition. This is, of course, with sponsored brand campaigns, so they are more the banner up top, they're more creative, they're more eye-catching most of the time, and that helps a lot. But this is helping you stand out from your competition who's just doing sponsored product campaigns. They're just showing up in the searches for particular keywords. They're kind of getting mixed in with everything else. But you have to remember, holiday campaigns cannot run forever, sadly. I wish they could, but they cannot. Any campaign with a holiday theme has to end within a day of that said holiday. And that means, for example, for Christmas, if it's a Christmas-themed sponsored brand campaign, it should end on Christmas Day. We have tried to get around this. We've tried to make them run a little longer afterwards. They've really tightened up on this over the past year or so. And you have to submit it with an end date. And like other campaigns, you just submit them and just end them whenever you want to. They have to have an end date or they won't be approved. And sometimes Amazon won't tell you why. You have to hit them up and call them, do a case with them, and then find out. It takes a while. So just preemptively do this and make sure you're ending within a day of that said holiday. And some examples of this, you can see them right now, for instance, where I just searched a Christmas gift for a woman and I got something for holiday wellness gifts. Doesn't seem too holiday themed or anything, but they're still targeting for Christmas gifts already. It's October right now. People are already diving in and trying to get some of this traffic. The next one was a Christmas gift for a couple. Once again, doesn't really seem like a holiday gift, but it is a gift nonetheless. It says gift shopping just got a whole lot easier. And that's a great headline too, because it pulls in the shopper and they're just like, well, I do need a gift. This does make it a lot easier. I can get a set of these and I'm good. This is a great gift for, a couple of my friends or something like that. So these are some examples that I wanted to show because they're doing it now and you're going to see a lot more of these coming up over the rest of Q4, especially right around Christmas, especially right around Thanksgiving and things like that and Black Friday. These will be popping up a lot more. And something else is really taking a full seasonal approach. And I do want to say that our team actually tried something new. I do want to give a big shout out to Erica on the team. She was phenomenal for trying this out. But this is doing something that's a little unique and different. And I do want to give the caveat that your results may vary. But it's having a more focused and aggressive approach for seasonal products. So really pushing a seasonal product and getting top of page, putting modifiers on it so that way you're showing up as much as possible with the best placement. And you're kind of front loading all that traffic. I'm getting ahead of myself. So what you're really doing is you're working hard to increase your organic ranking for that seasonal product by driving it with PPC, for instance. So since you're driving something with PPC, you will see an increase in ACoS. That is a given because you're pushing your advertising a lot harder, you're spending more. But as your sales pick up, you should see your ACoS balance out and possibly go back down because you are going to be focusing on very competitive real estate and your average cost per click will be a lot higher. That's just because you're trying to get that top spot. You're trying to beat out the competition. But if you're doing this, you have to focus on your better products. Once again, I've said this before. If a product is not doing well now, it probably won't do that well with increased advertising. So we don't suggest driving extra traffic to something that's just not selling for you. But what I really mean by all this, I broke it down step by step so you can kind of see this. I want people to understand this is something you do for a top selling product, one that you have a lot of confidence in. It has a beautiful listing. The images are great. It tells you a lot about the product. You don't want to drive a lot of traffic to a poor listing. It has to be a strong listing and a strong product. But for instance, we did this for Halloween. And the first step was they actually dropped the product pricing down by about 20% to make it more enticing to purchase the item when comparing it to competitor products. So already has a higher likelihood to actually get some sales. Then they placed all the seasonal products in a portfolio or a group inside of Ignite. And this allowed them to see all of the products for that season or for the holiday, Halloween, at a different threshold. They could say, okay, we see that these are going to have a higher ACoS, but they're grouped together. It gives us more control and transparency about what to expect with those products. Then they used a fixed bid to increase their traffic. A fixed bid is different from like a dynamic up and down or dynamic down only bid inside Seller Central. This is saying, I want to spend this much, nothing more, nothing less. This is when you're trying to be really competitive. You can say $5 bid. I want to spend this much for every click that I get for this product in this campaign. And you can get that. It shows you want to be more aggressive and you're willing to spend more to get that top priority placement. Then they also set a bid modifier for the top of search placement on Amazon. And this is to get the top of page results. So that product that you're trying to push is getting top of page placement there. And this caused the ACoS to increase, but then it stabilized as they planned. Then they were able to capitalize on the increased traffic from spending more on PPC, and that increased their organic ranking over time. So they were getting more organic sales over time. And at this point, since the organic sales were doing really well, and they're coming up, they actually put the product pricing back up over time. And that helped them to get, more sales at a higher price. So their ACoS kept on going down because they're getting more as a return. So they dropped it originally just so that way it's more enticing and more competitive of a price. They probably didn't make as much off of those sales, but it helped build up their sales and their BSR and their velocity over time to show this product has potential to actually get sales. And as they're capitalizing and growing, they can slowly increase that price back up. So each sale is more profitable for them. So once again, this is an idea. I think it's phenomenal. It is something that I think can be done for more seasons than just for Christmas. I think it is a way to push for Valentine's, other holidays, things that are happening. And it's just because you can be competitive to a certain sense, but you have to realize it's going to cost more up front. You're going to spend more. You're going to be more aggressive. You may not see the best sales originally, but if you're being more aggressive and it's a strong product and a strong listing, you can see those sales coming in.
And it's all about margins too. It's not just about the total top cost. It's also about margins. So the margin evened out over time. But the thing I loved about this example was that this customer that we were working with started early, and we have enough time right now to start now. So you still have the opportunity to take a seasonal approach like this client did, and matching that with the testing, preparing for the conversion, preparing for asking for reviews. You're going to get to ride that wave that Ed mentioned, not just from organic rank raising, from the advertising, the additional sales, but also from, we would expect, more traffic on your listing and more reviews coming in, positive reviews, than you normally would get early in the season. Plus, the other thing that's great about this is you are using the people who plan ahead. Like Ed likes to be prepared. You're using people like Ed who plan ahead and are willing to do that to save some money, to be in front of the procrastinators, which is the bulk of us.
Exactly. I mean, and you can really see this in the numbers. Just like you said, they started early. They started back in August leading into September, and you can see the swell. The first graph up top does show the beginning of the ramp up around September 6th. You can see the impressions sort of skyrocketing, honestly, and the sales gradually went up with them. And then leading up to Halloween below, you can see this is leading up to this week. It's going up and up and up and trending more, where the sales are going upwards. The impressions are still going upwards because there's more relevant searches for it happening right now. And they've already capitalized on that organic ranking. They've already proven to Amazon, hey, we get traffic that converts for these terms. We need to show up more. And this is just phenomenal. It's a phenomenal result. And it really gives you a leg up. And it's all about being prepared, starting early. Now is the time to do things like this if you want to. I do want to give the caveat again about the results. They do vary. This was a very great and awesome product for Halloween, very competitive. Dropping the price really helped give them a big boost. We've seen great results because of this. And I want to thank Erica once again and the whole team for working on this. This has been phenomenal. And then one of my favorites is beating them at their own game. And this is something that everybody knows about PPC especially, but also just Amazon in general. It's very competitive. It's a very competitive sport. And you have to be able to get a step above them and be ahead of the game to really get the most out of the traffic on Amazon. And what I really mean is keep an eye on your competitors. There's nothing wrong with this. If someone asks you, hey, what are your biggest competitors in your space, you should be able to really understand who they are, what they are, how you're priced comparatively. because there's going to be more competitive like people on Amazon during Q4. They're going to be more active as well. They're going to be advertising much more aggressively than they usually do. There will also be people that are launching new products for Q4, and they may be stepping into your market, and there may be new competition for you. You need to understand that. Understand that sellers will be pushing traffic to their products in Q4 along with you. It's not just you. So don't let this discourage you, though, guys. It's like really step in, stay competitive, and work hard to get your product in front of shoppers. And I just think it's important. I think it's just something I learned from doing advertising for so long is competitors are there, but you have to learn to step above them and do more than what they're currently doing with their strategies. And the first step of this is really using your search term data. Like I said, Amazon already has so much data just waiting for you to use if you're already advertising. And what you can do is you can dive into a search term report. You can see exactly what ASINs are showing in your report. So these are a list. All these ASINs are showing because Amazon showed your product on that ASIN's listing at some point. They said, hey, this apple slicer looks nice. Let's show this apple slicer down here below in the sponsored products banner right there. And once you have these ASINs, take them and see if they're complementary to your product or a direct competitor. And we have a tool Scope that we can actually use for this, where you go to Amazon, look up the ASIN, pull up Scope, and see if the product itself is something that you should go after. Is it ranking? What is it ranking for? What type of search volume is there? Is it worth going after? Is there enough traffic for me to capitalize on? And just ask yourself, does it seem like a viable target for your campaigns? Should I go after it? And then you can create a product targeting campaign and target these new ASINs directly. You can tell Amazon, hey, I want to show up on this listing in the future. I want to make sure my product is showing up on this particular listing. And this looks really simple when I break it out, is you just dive into your search term report. This is actually inside of Ignite. You can see there's gifts from end, and there's an ASIN. It's jackpot. That means that we showed up on that listing. And of course, you do want to look at the ASINs that have good metrics to begin with in the auto-targeting campaign. Are they converting well? Do you get sales on them? Those are the ones you really want to go after. But then you take that ASIN and plug it into Amazon. Check it out. Look, there it is. It's an apple slicer. And from here, you can see something about it already. You can see it has a lot of reviews, but it only has 4 stars, not 5. And it's priced at $7.97. So from there, take one step deeper and go to the listing and pull up Scope and learn more about it. Take a look at the search volume. All the keywords that it's ranking for and showing up for, what's the search volume? These actually have, this has pretty good reach. It's getting lots of searches. Like for, what is it, Apple Core, it got over 450,000 searches. That's a lot of traffic. So from this, I can see this is a viable target because let's say I have 5 stars on mine actually, and I have a good bit of reviews. I have 5 stars and only has 4. And mine's actually priced at $6.99, so mine's cheaper. This one's more expensive, has less stars. I'm gonna go after it. So all that you do is you target the ASIN in a product targeting campaign. You can actually enter a list. You can look at the suggested ones as well. You can also search just inside of this little console right here and start targeting these ASINs so you show up on their listing. Same thing, you set a bid, you can be competitive. But this is all data that Amazon has already given to you. You're just double checking. So don't forget to look for ASINs and auto-targeting campaigns and don't look over them. Take them and target them again so you can really capitalize on that traffic.
I want to say, Ed, awesome. I love that last tip, especially because I'm a big fan of Scope. It's a product that I love digging into that information because, as I mentioned, I love data, but it's so revealing. The keywords are such a science, and I'm really excited about that last tip. I hope everybody will use that. But we've given you a few different tips, and we want to open it up for questions next. So just to review what we've talked through today, number 1, Optimize your listings by knowing what your customers and your buyers want. Test your listings now. Test the pictures, test your headlines, your descriptions, and how you format things. Test everything, really. Test your website. Test everything that you're going to use to sell, Amazon or not, and start testing it now. Be more prepared. Use that extensive amount of data that you have, the longer time period in Ignite. Start now with Ignite so you have more regular baseline data leading into the holidays to compare the holiday margins and ACoS and ad spend too going into the holidays, and be prepared for all of the buying cycles through the year by looking at past data. Nail your organic rank. Again, get your systems tuned and ready to automatically ask for reviews, but start doing that right now. Grow that review volume early. Start by testing subject lines to get the most open rates, get creative, test the copy and the way that you ask for reviews, and make sure that you're primed and ready for the increased traffic. Convert and request. Then change your strategies. I love the example that Ed used. It was a really awesome one where you're planning ahead and relying on your buyer behavior to drive up your organic rank through improved buying volume early in the season to benefit you for the bulk of the season shoppers at the end. And then finally, knowing what your competitors are up to by simple and effective stalking using Scope and Ignite to discover what other products are out there, what are you really competing with, and where can you advertise really directly on those listings to be the product that is popping up surprisingly to a buyer and gets purchased instead of the one they found. So we're excited to share these tips. We hope you loved them. I think we've got a bunch of questions already coming through, but our last point to land on is that we want you to nail organic, nail advertising, and nail conversion this holiday season so that you win. Ed, do you want to take a peek at the questions? I know there have been a few.
Yeah. Let's see what we have. There's lots of good ones. So someone actually asked, they said, how much money should you spend on a keyword to determine if it's not working? I'm going to give my famous answer that I've been made fun of giving at the office all the time. And that answer is, it depends. But to follow up to that, so when you're looking at how much money you're spending on a keyword and how much you've spent over time, let's say you spent $10 on a keyword and it hasn't converted for you. But you also want to look at the cost per click. If that cost per click is $5, you've only gotten a couple clicks for that. So take into mind both of those. For example, on some of the accounts that we optimize, we're not looking at clicks, so to say. We are looking at spend because the spend may be really high because the cost per click average is a lot higher. On some accounts, we look at clicks instead, and then look at the spend to kind of double check behind us. We're looking at 5 clicks usually and no conversions. We think about negating it or moving it over to a manual targeting campaign with a lower bid to get more control over that spend. It could go up to 10 sometimes. If the cost per click is really cheap, that's what we can look at. We have some cutoffs where we do $10, $15, $20 for the cutoff. It really just depends on the account and how competitive this space is. Also, how much the product is too. I know that's a lot of it depends, but guys, if that's an honest answer, really take into account both the clicks, the cost per click, and the actual overall spend for the date range you're looking at before you make that assumption. And always remember, you don't have to negate a keyword. If it is a keyword that you should be ranking for and should be showing up for, you can move it over to a manual targeting campaign and just control the bid more. Lower the bid down so you're not spending as much for those clicks whenever they are coming through. That's another great tactic that you can use.
That sounds complicated, Ed, which is why I outsource our PPC, and you can do that too with Ed and his team. So, wow. I see another question actually that is related to using 2 of these techniques together from Bert, who asks, can using testing, like with our partner PickFu, with images help to improve advertising ROI? Yes, absolutely. What you want to do all the time is optimize your conversion. This is something I talk about in my role all the time. You want to make it easy for someone to make that buying decision. Now, Amazon is set up to, people know how to buy, but what you're trying to convince them to do is decide that your product is the one that they're going to buy when they're ready to buy. So by testing images, finding out the images that really sell your product. Again, formatting seems like a small thing to test, but it can be really critical. Images, formatting, description. Make sure that you nail those because it will increase your performance on advertising no matter what. If conversions go up, your cost of advertising goes down because more of those buyers landing on your listing will convert.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that we see all the time too with our managed services team that I work with. If someone just has a listing that hasn't really been built out that well, doesn't have the greatest images, you'll see a lower conversion rate because we're driving traffic to something, they're engaging, then they're not converting once they land there. So we're very, very, very big about optimizing your listing, your images, and really getting it set up for success because you have to think, advertising on Amazon is just like driving traffic somewhere. You wouldn't want to advertise a place that when you get there, it's just disgusting. You want it to be beautiful and pristine so people want to stay there. So it's huge. It's one of the biggest portions of advertising, and it's pretty overlooked.
And it's what you have to do first. You need to optimize for conversion, then advertise. Because if you're going to get that traffic there and pay to get it there, be ready for it. All right, Ed, looks like a few more questions. How does changing pricing down or up, we use the example of our client, 20%. How does that affect Amazon subscriptions?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. If you're doing a subscription-based service, I think it would affect it, but I'm not sure how that would affect it overall. I don't know if that, I need to learn more about that one and see what they're talking about. If it's like the
I shouldn't have asked.
The repeat. No, you're fine. You're fine. I don't really know on that one because I would think it would just still affect the same type of pricing for the subscriptions that the regular shopper is paying. That's something I'm going to follow up with afterwards and find out more about what their situation is, what they're really talking about, and look at their example that they're looking at.
Awesome.
But I do see, where was one? I love this one. What is a good ACoS for a new product introduction? It's 200% typical. Man, if I had 1,000 clients that were willing to have a 200% ACoS for a product introduction, it'd be phenomenal. This really does vary, guys. It does vary across the market for what your I guess strategy is behind it, how aggressive you want to go. If you are in something like the supplement market, you may see a 200% ACoS because it's very competitive, very high spend, lots of people launching products all the time. It could get up to 200%. For ones that are a little less saturated, you could just say, okay, my margin is 30%, maybe just double that for your introduction. You have a 60% target ACoS or something. So it does vary on how much you want to spend. It is something where you want to launch it with a higher ACoS in mind, maybe just be willing to break even with your product, or maybe just go over just a little bit so you're not necessarily making money off of it, but you're being aggressive enough so you realize I'm not making anything, but I'm driving up my BSR, I'm getting better placement, and my organic sales are going up. And then over time, as you're building up your organic and you're getting better ranking and velocity, you can dial back on your ACoS goal, maybe go down 10%, 20% away from what the original one was. If you are just looking to make some money, then let's say your break even is 40%, maybe go after a 35% ACoS. So you're still being pretty aggressive, but there's still some margin left for you to take home afterwards. So every answer I have ends with it depends, but I hope that was helpful enough so you can understand it does vary, but why it does vary as well.
Cool. So looks like a few other great questions. So I like this one because I think about ad spend all the time. How much should I spend on advertising based on my monthly sales? So I think they're looking for a percentage or a range of percentages there.
Once again, it really depends on how much you want to spend. So you can look at this in a tacos aspect, which is the total advertising cost of sale. That's looking at how much you're spending based to your overall sales. A lot of people are looking to have like a 10% tacos or anything less than that. But it also does depend on the market that you're in. There are some markets where 80% of your sales will come from advertising. And that's just how it is because it's just very competitive. You're trying to beat out your competition, get the placement, and then get a sale. So for some of our clients, we do see where their total advertising cost of sales or their tacos is 50, 60, 70%, because they're spending a lot of money to get those sales. And their organic is good, but it's not as high. because it's just a very competitive market. People love having a sub 10% tacos though. That's what you usually look for. That's the metric that you want to focus on, not just ACoS. ACoS is looking at your spend in comparison to sales from advertising, where tacos is looking at your spend in comparison to your overall sales, including advertising. That's a huge thing I want everybody to focus on going forward. We look at it with all of our clients. ACoS is great. It's a great target, but your tacos is going to be a wider target for your whole entire account as a whole.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. The other thing you do need to think about is that Amazon may not, and advertising really, may not be the only part of your marketing budget to take into consideration. The general rule in, I think, most industries is you should never spend less than 10% on marketing. So if you have a great tacos, you should be spending that marketing to get up to that 10% at least in other places. And if you're building a brand, you need to be thinking about where you're spending that. There's lots of other opportunities to build your brand, both inside and of your Amazon product demand chain and outside of it. So don't ever be looking to cut corners on getting your product out there. Marketing is critical to growth.
And someone just asked, do you suggest push organic traffic when you launch and then follow up with advertising, or vice versa? So both ways. Amazon says you should have 10 reviews before you start advertising. We all know that's a little harder to do when you're launching a product. There's multiple approaches you can take. One of those is to advertise at a lower spend. Just do some more passive advertising with lower cost per click, lower budgets. You're not spending too much, so you're just gaining some data. And you can gain some data, see what's working, then up your spend as it continues. Another way is to wait until you get some reviews, because reviews do lead to a higher conversion rate, but they're going to be harder to get. I'm more in the middle where I say, let's push some traffic towards these new products. Let's try to get those reviews from someone who bought that product through an advertisement, because it's the best way to get a lot of traffic to a product in a short amount of time, as opposed to just sitting there waiting around, maybe doing some off Amazon advertising or getting some affiliates to really look at your products instead. With all of our clients, we usually start pushing traffic to those new products to get some likely reviewers to the page so they can convert into a review and help us over time as they grow.
Yeah, and Amazon has a lot of programs you can participate in for new products. We actually did a webinar series just the last few months on product launch. So I know that one of my team is moderating this webinar, and we'll probably send some links to the product launch tip sheet or collateral that we have out there. But there are a lot of things that go into building organic traffic, regardless of the organic engine you're looking at, Amazon, Google, whatever it is. Organic doesn't just come to you. You have to really work for it. So it's of value to plan and begin the launch early, knowing what you're going to be fighting against. Know your competitors, where they are, what they're competing on, to build that traffic to your listing, grow some buyer volume, and grow those reviews. That's a critical step.
Yeah, it is.
So I see another question for you, Ed, and I want to make sure we don't miss it. What type of ad budget should you have before you contact PPC management services?
So honestly, if you're looking to grow, you can have any type of budget. Our typical entry client that we have does have about $1,000, $2,000 a month in ad spend on Amazon. We've had some that come in with a lot lower, and we're looking to help you grow. But of course, we're only growing how much you spend if there is a correlated result coming back from the sales that you're getting as well. In short, we're not going to just say, let's make you spend $1 million this month and let's just see what happens. We do watch it over time. We are way more gradual with that effect. We do step in, and if we are looking to increase traffic, we do it over time and only continue to do so if you're seeing a correlated result in sales. So we've had people that come to us and they start off with just $1,000. Now they're doing $5,000, $6,000 a month in ad spend, but they're making a lot more money off of their ads as well. And their organic has increased tremendously too.
Right. All right. Do you see any more questions we need to hit before we go?
I think that's it. Those are some good ones. Good questions, guys. Good questions when you make me talk a lot. Those are good questions.
Yes, and we can actually hear you. You don't sound like a rapper, so that's awesome. So thank
Yeah.
you. We'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much for your time today. If you have any questions, simply reach out to us in the various ways that we've got available. And happy selling. Have a great Q4.
See you guys.